Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining, everybody. Earlier today, I was actually going through my basement here, my entire whiskey collection, in order to identify the bottles that I plan to bring to my New Year's party this year. It's been a tradition the last couple of years to do a epic blind flight on New Year's with my brother-in-law and friends. But in order to fuel that blind flight properly, I have to make sure I bring enough bottles over so that that blind flight even confuses me in areas. But after going through the basement, I have narrowed in on 10 bottles that I am going to bring, with one of them also being a special fresh crack that I'll reveal as well. Curious what I would bring to a New Year's party? Well, stick around and find out. So thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. Now, throughout this video, I will be recommending a few other tips and tricks, but also be going through a reflection of what my whiskey collection even looks like in 2025. I mean, my whiskey collection is about to go through a very interesting transition, I think, over the next year. And this New Year's in particular is really going to hit this point home. But one of my first tips is going to be to invest in some type of whiskey backpack and or carrying case. So I got mine from Whiskey Weekend a few years ago. So shout out to Grease and Will for putting this swag in that, because man, have I gotten so much life out of these bags, and they've held up so well for years. But inside this bag here has all these individual slots for the bottles. I don't want to reveal the bottles that we're going to go through though. But this is what I carry around, and it's tradition for me to essentially fill these bags up whenever I go to parties. Now, I don't know who made those backpacks in particular, but I have seen like Agent Oars got some cool packs. They really do come in handy, especially when they have the individual paddings and separations for all the bottles. But one thing I really realized as I was going through my collection here and thinking about some of the bottles that I wanted to bring to this New Year's party, my whiskey collection's gone through quite the transition here over the last couple of years. My peak collecting days was more around 2020, 2021, where I truly was ticking things off of my bingo card, where it was like, oh, I needed this bottle, I needed this bottle, I needed this bottle. But eventually I got all the bottles that I wanted, at least in terms of the name value, in order to own at least one. And now my collection's drifting more into single barrels, particularly even the single barrels that we select as part of this channel, which ends up being some of the main things that I drink throughout the year. But as much as I love single barrels, I must admit, unless you're around certain crowds, it's not as fun to share those single barrels. Unless someone is really, really deep into things the way I am, those single barrels and brands they never heard of don't necessarily excite in the same way that it would me. So when I think about this New Year's party and what I'm trying to bring to this flight, it's got to be a combination of that name value, but also something I really want to drink. So these are going to be 10 bottles that caught my eye. 3 to 4 of them are going to be served up to me blind in that blind flight, which will fuel the better part of the day when we're just cooking and having fun and eating cheese and doing all that type of stuff and being lazy. So let's go through these 10 bottles. And as I go through this, I am curious what your New Year's traditions are and what bottles you would bring to your bottle share, or what you plan on enjoying on New Year's as well. And then at the end of this video, I'll also unveil one of the bottles that will be a fresh crack that I'm going to be excited to get into. Number 10. I'll make these quick hits, but I thought this one would be a fun one. I had to throw in at least one Dusty. So this isn't the original decanter. This is the bottle that we poured it in. Dusty Dan actually poured it into this bottle, but it's a 1966 10-year that came in a beautiful Ohio-shaped bottle that was gifted to me by our good friend Mojo. So always excited when I can share this drink with friends, especially friends that may not have had anything from the 60s or anything Dusty before. But this is probably the more unique one in the lineup, trying to just add a Dusty to our evening. Number 9. All right, I know I went through that whole spiel about single barrels and trying to bring other things that might get other people more excited. But this one, I am excited to re-explore it again. This is probably my favorite rye from this particular distillery. But I've got a Wild Turkey private selection rye right here. And this one was picked by the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club. So shout out to Jason and Scott on this one. But I think this one is just truly, truly magical in so many different ways. And the best part is, if it does end up in the blind flight randomly, it might open the eyes of the party on what a wild turkey rye could be. Number 8. So my brother-in-law is a huge, huge Jack Daniels fan. So can't wait to get our own Jack Daniels single barrels out in 2026. We picked a Tennessee whiskey and a Coy Hill rye just a few months ago. So, woo, hopefully we get those in a few months in our hands. But then added to the lineup will be a Jack Daniels 12 year. This is batch 1. I only got a little bit of this one left, so this might be one that doesn't survive the New Year's holiday, which is a theme with many of the bottles that you're going to see throughout here. Number 7. As I'm thinking about this, age statements actually might be a huge theme of this flight. Quite a few of these are in the double digits. But one bottle I got my hands on this year, thanks to our good whiskey friend Chris, was another 14-year proprietor. This one's a lower proof one at 105.7 proof, but these old Bartons were so amazing when they were coming out. I really do miss being able to get my hands on these, and I was so happy I got to add one to the collection again. It has been interesting reflecting on 2025, though, just the very lack of anything Barton related I seem to have gotten my hands on. We got spoiled for a few years there with the Calumet series and the Sam Houstons and all those things coming out consistently on top of these barrel-proof proprietors. But now the old Barton is something that I need to protect a little bit. Number 6. All right. Remember, I need to pull things that other people are going to appreciate, and people like their horsies here. But as you can see from the flight, a regular Blanton's definitely wouldn't live up to this flight. So we gotta pull in a Blanton straight from the barrel here. Now this one's a little less than halfway full. This one's actually from overseas, so it's 700 milliliters. But from 2019, I've had this in my collection for quite a while. But if some of these have to go, man, no better way to do it than on New Year's. Number 5. If you've been to the channel before, you know that I love my MGP, particularly MGP distilled between 2005 and 2008. So definitely need to make sure I had some epic MGP on the bar. And one of the bottles I pulled is this Tumbling Dice 11 year. Been nursing this bottle for quite some time, but actually going to get my hands on a backup here very soon. So what better way to have a guilt-free relationship with this on New Year's than to have a backup on the way? Number 4. Well, we already had a Wild Turkey rye in the lineup. Why not have a Wild Turkey bourbon as well with the 17-year bottle and bond? One of my personal favorites from the entire series, but I thought this one would particularly go well with the theme of the night and combined with some of those Buffalo Trace notes in there with all the cherry I got going on. Why not see how this one sticks out in the blind? Number 3. All right, we're getting down to the last ones here. Now, what's great about this is if these particular bottles don't show up in the blind flight at all, I definitely know then when I get closer to the ball drop that this is probably one of the ones I'll be enjoying. So only got a little bit of this one left. This is the only GTS I have ever owned, and it is time to put this thing to pasture. And that goes back to that theme that I was talking about at the beginning of this video, and I hold it in my heart with this one in particular. I was so excited to get my hands on this one back in 2019. Check it off the list. I got a WLW around the same time, but neither of which I have been able to replace or get a backup of since. So some of these things that I'm talking about finishing on a holiday, there is no backup on the bar, which means I'll have to get used to my bar without one of these shining on the shelf. We're gonna need to get lucky in a lottery here soon, or I gotta start standing in line. Oh, geez. Number 2. Well, we haven't had any Heaven Hill yet on this list, so gotta add something into there. So why not the Parker Heritage Heavy Char Barrels 10-year release? One of my favorite for the more modern Parker Heritage that have come out, but this one, I've had it in blinds a few different times. It always throws me off. It must be those heavy char. Sometimes I think it's toasted, but it could be a really fun flight to have this paired up, maybe even against that Blanton straight from the barrel. Some similar characteristics, but I do think this one would come out on top. Number 1. All right, I already telegraphed this a little bit with one of the bottles I said a couple minutes ago, but hey, MGP is my thing. I better have some great MGP in this lineup. Thus, why not get into some epic old MGP? This one is a 10-year coming at 110 proof. I've gotten to sample this one before, and oh man, I am so happy I get to spend some time with it again. More or less, my thing typically is opening up or having some old MGP whenever I'm at a bottle share, whenever I'm at a holiday. That is my happy place. So I'm curious what your happy place is. Let us know in the comments on that one. All right. So I got just one last bottle to reveal. I have to fresh crack something. And it's something that I'm excited to get into because I haven't had it before. It's been sitting patiently on my shelf for some special occasion. Why not let it be New Year's? And I have really gotten my brother-in-law into this particular spirit and brand over the last couple years with the group that picked this in mind as well. So I am going to crack open here through the wax some nice light whiskey. This one is Kira's Revenge, coming from our friends over there at Nerds and Turds. 15 years old. And man, almost 136 proof here. Look at that. It's been waiting patiently since 2022 for me to crack open that wax. But yes, over the years, I've gotten my brother-in-law into quite a few of the Nerds and Turds Obtainium releases. He really, really enjoys light whiskey. So I thought, hey, fits the theme. 15 years old, on par with so many things that could be in this flight. And hey, get to crack open something that I haven't gotten to try yet, that I'm excited for. And then maybe I can will our friends out of retirement here too. So what do you think of this lineup? What do I have missing? What would be your first pour if you had the chance at this bar? And what is going to be your special pour on New Year's? What are you going to be sharing with family and friends or at the ball drop? Let us know in the comments. And Happy New Year's, everybody. Thank you for the amazing 2025. And just remember, while you can always find more whiskey, you can never have enough whiskey, friends. So take care of those around you, and we will catch you on the next one in 2026. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for watching Hello Again, Whiskey Friends, everybody. A big shout out to our amazing Patreon community. If it wasn't for you, we couldn't continue to produce the content and barrel picks week after week. And for everybody else out there, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. It really helps the channel more than you know. And we'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody.